What's up everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to share with you a fall favorite muffin recipe. This is going to be a staple recipe you guys can use all season long. You can modify it how you need to, add whatever mix-ins you want, but I'm going to give you the base ingredients for what you need to create the perfect muffin. First thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 400 degrees and have yourself either a muffin pan. I'm going to use just a regular size muffin pan. You could do mini muffins if you want. This recipe is going to yield about 12 large muffins. So you're going to want to spray this with some non-stick spray. We're going to go ahead and set that aside. And you are going to want to use two separate mixing bowls. We're going to start with the dry ingredients and do the wet ingredients and then mix them together. So with this recipe, we are going to use some of my favorite fall ingredients that are going to keep this recipe relatively lower in fat. We're going to use some heart-healthy fats, but we're also going to incorporate some really great superfoods such as sweet potato and applesauce. So let's get started. So we're going to start with your dry ingredients, and I'm going to first measure out for flour. I'm going to use some of the coconut flour, and I'm going to measure out a half a cup of our coconut flour. You really could use whatever flour you want, but I personally like the coconut flour because it gives it a very sweet taste. It keeps it a little bit lower in carbs, and coconut flour also makes muffins like very fluffy, so it does give it a nice texture to it that a regular wheat or white flour won't give it. For protein in this recipe, I'm going to use the MTS pumpkin pie, which is available right now. This is one of my favorites for the fall, and we're going to add a scoop and a half of this. And I'm getting low on my pumpkin pie. Obviously, if you guys don't have the pumpkin pie, you can sub in vanilla, birthday cake. In order to make our muffins rise, we're gonna use a combination of baking powder and baking soda. I'm gonna go ahead and use 1 full teaspoon of the baking powder, and then half a teaspoon of the baking soda. Now when it comes to spices, I hate measuring spices if you haven't noticed that yet, so I'm just gonna dump in a combination of ground cinnamon, and if you want to measure it, I wouldn't go over probably a teaspoon. I'm gonna use some pumpkin pie spice, and then I'm also gonna use a little ground nutmeg. I'm also going to add in just 1 crank of my pink sea salt. And that's gonna do it for dry ingredients. I'm just going to mix that together really quick and then go ahead and set that aside. Next, we're gonna take our other dish and we're gonna add to it our wet ingredients. The first thing I'm gonna start with is 2 whole eggs, and I also use 2 egg whites in addition to that. So 4 eggs, but using only 2 of the yolks. And before I add in the other ingredients, I just want to go ahead and whip up the eggs and the egg yolks so that that's nice and mixed together. Next, we are going to use some coconut oil, and I measured out 30 grams and melted that in the microwave for about 30 seconds, so you can't probably really see it, but that's in there. I'm going to go ahead and pour that into my egg mixture. Next, for fall favorites, what I have already measured out here is 1 full cup of mashed sweet potato, and all I did to get the mashed sweet potato was take a couple sweet potatoes and boiled them on the stovetop. You could bake them in the oven, you could nuke them in the microwave, however you want. I just boiled them on the stovetop, and I did remove the skin, so we are not adding any skin to this recipe, but 1 cup of mashed sweet potato, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dump that in there. Sweet potato is going to give us a good source of vitamin A and fiber, even though we removed the skin, believe it or not. We're still going to get some good fiber from that. My other fall favorite that we're going to use, I have some local unsweetened applesauce. It just is made with cinnamon and vanilla, so it's like a chunky applesauce. I'm going to use 1/4 of a cup of that. You guys could just use an unsweetened applesauce that you get at the grocery store, but that does have some cinnamon in it as well, so it's going to give it even more of that fall flavor we're looking for. I'm going to add in some sugar-free syrup. If you guys aren't worried so much about carbs or you need more carbs, you could definitely use pure maple syrup. But we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of that. Last lastly, we're just gonna add some pure vanilla extract. And I'm gonna use a teaspoon of that. And once we've got that all in there, I'm gonna go ahead and whip that up using my whisk. So once we've got our wet ingredients all mixed up, just go ahead and add those to the dry ingredients, and then go ahead and stir those all up. Once we've got our muffin batter all mixed in, I'm just gonna use my 1/4 of a cup to kind of scoop these out evenly. Again, I had already sprayed this with nonstick cooking spray, and we're just gonna go ahead and fill each one up. Once you've got them all evenly into your baking pan, we're just gonna go ahead, put it in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. All right guys, it's been 20 minutes and our muffins are all set. They get nice and brown on the outside, but they do stay nice and soft. And because of the pumpkin and the applesauce, they do have they're dense, you know, these aren't light and fluffy ones. So these are gonna be nice and filling. Again, you can play around with them. You could add mini chocolate chips to them. You could add some walnuts to them. You could do whatever you want to kind of spruce them up, or they're delicious just plain. So I hope you guys give these a try. We'll have nutritionals down below. Hit that like button and see you in the next video.